So welcome everybody. Thank you everybody for being here at this first ever Dolphin Pool event of the SDG Hubs. This event has been a long time coming since November 2020 when the SDG Hubs were first launched. But either way, we're very happy to present to you guys all these different projects which our Hub members have embarked on, and hopefully to receive some great feedback from our expert panelist that is here today. So to get us started, here's a bit of background information about what the SDG Hubs are. So inspired by the SDG sandbox strands of the Global Summit 2.0, the SDG Hubs seek to be the center of student-led community action for the Sustainable Development Goals. Since November 2020, 4 hubs for SDGs, number 4, quality education, number 5, gender equality, number 13, climate action, and number 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions, have been meeting, planning, and executing various projects for their respective SDGs. Today's Dolphin Pool is a culmination of their efforts, where the SDG student ambassadors of the various hubs will share their work before a panel of experts for feedback, so wish them luck. So first off, we're going to introduce the various members of our panel today. So we have 3 great experts from the realm of social innovation and entrepreneurship, Mr. Abhijit Kandagal, Mr. Hugo Pickford-Wardle, and Mr. Paul Johnson. So maybe why don't, starting with Mr. Abhijit, you guys introduce yourselves?
Absolutely. Hey, hello everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're tuning in from. I'm based in India right now. It's a good Friday evening and glad to be here today. Thank you very much, Manimpact, Matthew, for bringing me on board. Very excited to hear all of you. Quick background, I'm a hardware entrepreneur primarily, started out about a decade back in my college. Since then, have run 2 edtech companies, worked with the government, worked with investors, setting up incubators, accelerators in Mumbai. And for the past couple of years, I've been driving a nonprofit foundation called Vruksh, in which we work with micro entrepreneurs and social enterprises in Southeast Asia, enabling them to succeed. And all the best to everyone who's sharing their thoughts today. Very, very excited to hear all of you, and glad to be alongside such amazing people. Hi, Hugo and Paul. Glad to connect with you.
Mr. Hugo, would you like to go next?
Yes, of course. Hi, I'm Hugo. Hello, everybody. It's lovely to be here, and I'm really excited to see what you have all been up to. So I run 16 by 16, and so we're all about trying to teach teenagers, people your own age, the skills so you can bring your ideas to life. And I know a few of you are involved with the 16 by 16 program that we are working with Impact on. I've been doing new products and innovation for long enough to have learned lots of lessons from doing things the wrong way. So I like to say that I've got a PhD in failure because I think I've done it every which way. So that's where experience comes from. And I've done things in all sorts of different spaces. So recently, you may know the magazine Vogue. I helped them create their first business for the fashion industry. And prior to that, I've also helped lots of other companies, including a lot of media companies, build their businesses. So I'm really looking forward to seeing all of your ideas and seeing what you guys teach me today.
I can't really follow up on top of those two esteemed colleagues. Nice to meet you, Abhijit. Hugo, we know each other. I think we graduated from the same school of failure. my passion, I've always been driven by my passion, and when I came out of college, I really wasn't sure what to do, but this thing called the internet popped up. 1995. Yes, we had the internet in the last century, so I followed my passion in digital product and service innovation. Been fortunate enough to create ideas and help shape businesses and grow businesses of different sizes across things like TV, entertainment, e-commerce, gaming, telecoms. Over the last year, actually over the last 5 years, I've been more focused on nurturing the best brackets and the worst out of people, ideas and causes, and most recently in the last year been working as closely as I can to help Lisa and the team in their online efforts. I'm very much looking forward to hearing what ideas and where you guys have got to and the progress made through the hub initiatives that you've kicked off. Yeah, that's about it really. And I've got a TV filter because I've just downloaded the latest version of Zoom and I'm playing around with the filters. So you may see some sunglasses or a little virtual mustache appear, but hey, that's just me.
Great to hear from y'all and super honored to have all of you here. So thank you for that, those introductions. I'm very much looking forward to hearing some of your insights and any feedback you guys might have for our hub members. So without further ado, I believe we can get to our hub presentations. So first off, we have Hub 4, which is led by Ray and Lois. So Ray and Lois, why didn't you guys take over from here, screen share y'all's presentation and give a brief introduction of you and your hub?
Yeah, all right, sure. Could you just let me share my screen? It seems like it's not allowing me to. All right, perfect. I hope everyone could see this. All right, thank you. So, okay. Sorry for a sec. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Ray. I co-lead SDG 4 Hub alongside Lois, and it's a great pleasure today to be here in front of everybody to talk about our initiative and how we got there, just what we've done in the past few months. So with that said, we're first going to introduce ourselves, just the hub members, and I will just leave it to the other hub members to briefly introduce themselves.
So I guess I'll go. Hi everyone, my name is Lois. I co-lead the SDG Hub alongside Ray and everyone else in the team. And I'm a 15-year-old student and I currently live in Gibraltar. So Adri, if you want to go next.
All right, I can go next. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Adriana Goma. I am from Bolivia. I am 18 years old, and I'm very passionate about education. And that is the principal reason why I joined to this hub.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Rai Muhammad Ibrahim. I'm from Pakistan, and I'm also very passionate about this project as I got passionate about it because I have like many personal experience of like bad education system. So I'm willing to change the world with you guys, inshallah. Thank you.
Yeah, great, thank you. So we also have our other hub members, including Prince, Mohammed, and Rashida, as well as our adult supervisor, Julia, who unfortunately weren't able to join us today, but will be presenting the work that we have done all together. And here's just a brief overview of what we're going to cover today in this presentation. We're first going to talk about the speaker session that we had at the beginning of the hub, and then our discussion process, talking and exploring about the things that we were hoping to try out, and then essentially coming up to our project idea. and then just brainstorming during the discussion process, and essentially we settled with our idea of LearnUp, which we're hoping to implement in the future, and we'll elaborate on that in future slides. So in November 2020, SDG Hubs launched, and then almost immediately after the launch, we were able to host a speaker session. As many of you here may know, and or even attended, this was an opportunity for us to meet other people who work in the field of education and who are hoping to work toward SDG 4, including people who started their own nonprofits or just a special program in their school. And this really gave us insight as well as inspiration to what we are trying to do and what we could essentially start in the field of education. And with that said, I'll pass it on to Lois and Rai to talk about our discussion process.
So now that we have the discussion part of our presentation, so this is when our team sort of got together and discussed any flaws that we saw in the education system globally and within our own countries.
Yeah, okay, the pigeon race. This was like very like informally, we were talking about very informally. I was talking to these guys like about how people in Pakistan take pigeon serious as a really serious sport, and we figured out how how can we apply this idea in our presentation as well. Like pigeons have like homing instinct. Like scientists are still like aren't agreed on a single point that how pigeons are able to find their home even if they are released from miles away from their home. There's a circle around and head back to their home. So pigeons, because of this homing instinct, pigeons were used as messengers as in previous times, like in wars and situations like that. And the same instinct, a pigeon who is born with this natural born instinct is is used to in this sport. So like people like train and take care of pigeons uh, because of their instinct. Like I'm trying to say that they do not a sport is based on a pigeon's instinct, not anything apart from that. Like in the same way, humans also have an instinct to explore and learn. Like every child when he's born, he's continuously asking questions, what's that, how that's done. So like I have contributed that I have like came to a conclusion that humans also have an instinct to explore and learn. Yeah, next slide please. So talking about our education system, like our education system is not built or is not training us around our natural instinct. It's the same example if we ask pigeons to just to climb the tree the fastest, like whichever pigeon will climb the tree the fastest is the winner. It's the same thing. That climbing tree is not a pigeon's instinct. Same way humans are here to explore and learn new things. The same way that's the problem here. Education system encourages forced memorization. Like a child will not know why they are learning this, and how this can be implemented in practical situations. So like it's like just you have to just stuff all stuff in the student, and he just have to go and vomit that on a piece of paper, and that's it. And okay, and ranked on their marks despite he understands the concept or not. I like literally, like I'm like literally visualizing everything because I'm literally speaking from a personal experience that once I wanted to apply to become a prefect and for the school, but I wasn't able to because there were students with more marks than me, but lesser social circle. That's why I wasn't able to apply it. And like they are ranked on their marks, and despite of that, people they understand the concept of not. The same way, if a school encourages memorization instead of actual learning, it automatically discourages creativity of a student. Like he is not able to be creative, like okay, I can like tweak this and do that, and maybe I'll find something new, I can do something new. No, it's just like you have to, like, I literally remember my teacher saying that, I asked that, why sir, why do we use integration and what's the purpose of it? He was like that, uh, son, you have to just memorize it, you will get marks from it. Even we don't know why we use integration. So like, no more fault of that teacher, but they also went through the same system. Yeah, next slide.
All right, thank you. So basically, after our discussion process, after we kind of spotted the issues that we saw in the system, we were hoping to brainstorm some ideas on how exactly we could solve those issues, or at least looking towards the making those things better. And here is a quote that we found before brainstorming and coming up with our project from Dorothy Parker. It read, the cure for boredom is curiosity, and there is no cure for curiosity. So this almost became like our guiding principle, more on like we are trying to make sure that we're not oppressing our curiosity, but instead cherishing it and appreciating curiosity and creating projects, or just through education, making sure that our curiosity is somewhat satisfied. So
the main question we asked ourselves when coming up with our idea is, what makes a great initiative, and sort of how will this impact people with SDG 4?
Well, in this case, if the pandemic taught us one thing, that would be how vulnerable education can be in the face of a crisis. Making it online would extend the reach of an initiative and make it accessible. As we see, being online was pretty much the only way for to stay connected with other people, with our friends, with our family, and especially in education, this was the best way. That is the best way to continue learning and continue studying. So in this way, we can reach many students of many countries.
The second component, and I think would be the most important factor here, would be to have a purpose, because purpose brings motivation, and in education, we're also hoping for people to look for a purpose and then pursue that purpose.
So next up is that it addresses a SDG 4 target. Obviously, we are SDG 4 hubs, and the SDG 4 lays out an inclusive and comprehensive plan that will help in sort of bettering our education system for the future, as well as giving kids a chance to learn new things. And it also has to be feasible. So obviously, we all have ambitious hopes in changing the education in one way or another, but we have to sort of work small and then get bigger as we go on.
So then we came up with our initiative. Initially we had, I think, a lot of ideas. We had almost 10, and then we kind of narrowed it down to one initiative that we thought we would start working towards and hopefully launch in the near future. It's called LearnUp, and I will pass this on to Rai and Lois to briefly talk about this.
Yeah, okay. So talking about what exactly is our project idea. So we are not like covering only academics. We are like, we want a student to explore the learning pathway, steps that he will take in learning anything new, not just academics or physics or maths, just everything new. So we just wanted a student to explore that path so he can implement that path in every category of learning. So we want to create a platform where students can interact, like certain students have separate skills, some have other skills, so they can like interact with each other, and the people who are interested in similar skills can share their ideas, brainstorm, and like explore that pathway of learning. The same thing can be implemented in academics as well. So we can like initially we are thinking of using Discord or Slack as a platform, which because with Discord I think will be a better option because I had personally used it. And yeah, And yeah, the same thing, community to interact, learn and develop. Yeah, but like if you're like having a friendly environment, informal environment, not just a like teachers reading from their slides, and then like literally I fell asleep when my teacher was teaching online reading from slides. Like that's not a good thing, but sharing my personal experience. So yeah, yeah, over to you, Lois.
Yeah, thanks for that, Rai. So moving on, LearnUp will also demonstrate and teach the skills that one is very good at in a friendly environment, and just being able to have the chance to learn new skills as well as teach them to others. It will also sort of be a healthy competition. So at the end of the day, we don't want anything bad to go down in what we're doing. So we sort of want to have it as a friendly manner and a healthy sort of competition that happens between the students. And finally, we would sort of have a rank system between the students who join LearnUp for motivation and dedication towards the program, and just to also see how many things you've done while joining our project. Next slide.
And yeah, a rank system not based on their performance, but based on their willing to contribute and to contribute in the society, and they're willing to learn. And yeah, okay, what issues are we trying to address? Lack of interactive learning. The same thing that a teacher is teaching from slides, and like they also like discourages question from students. Like was a student is afraid to ask questions, that due to my question whole class will be looking at me and sir will be like, okay, just get over with your question and stuff like that. Like if you have interaction, a platform where students like yourself, you can interact with each other, like what's that, it's a brainstorming, like everyone is on the same level, and they can ask questions from each other, from the person who is at who know good skills. Then it's like a friendly environment, interactive environment. And yeah, skills learn, you can you learn things that are usable in life instead of just preparing for exams. Like I know student, I was like giving my business exam, and like the teacher said that son, you said you should like learn, you should have good reading speed and a good handwriting speed to complete your exam on time. Like I was like, sir, how can I improve my good how can I improve my reading skill and writing skill? Like they do not teach stuff like practical stuff, like how to improve your reading skill and how to improve your writing skill. They just like, you have to do it, just do it somehow and get good marks and grades. Yeah, over to you, Adri. Okay, that's what are we hoping to accomplish? We are hoping to accomplish meaningful learning. Sharing your skills gives you meaning. It will also motivate a person who is already having that skill to share that skill with others. And in the process of teaching, he'll also like polish his skill as well, and even motivate to grow in that skill further. Having a clear concept helps learning. Like if a person is having a clear concept about something, he'll learn it faster, and he will, if a like properly absorb concepts encourages practical implementation. Giving my personal experience again, like I like read in business that how motivational factors can contribute greatly in improving uh, a person's uh, uh, a person's progress. So like there is a boy who lives with me, he's from a village. So I like literally that fitted that reward system theory in him, that when he'll do things like complete his homework and things like that, I like, oh, I will praise him and things like that, giving him candy and stuff. Like this is example that how like good absorbed concepts can will encourage a person to implement those in his real life. Yeah.
Next up, we have giving opportunities. So with LearnUp, we allow students to learn a lot of skills and different ideas that mainly aren't taught in school. So they can learn skills that one might not have to purchase, such as university courses or things from shops or anything like that. It's also an opportunity to be a part of a friendly and supportive community, as I know that a lot of schools around the world do not have that sort of supportive environment that I luckily do have within my school. And we also allow students to brainstorm their own ideas and skills with individuals with similar interests, as well as being able to learn interests that they might not have thought they liked if it weren't for LearnUp. And next slide.
Okay, what exactly the difference between, like, you would be thinking that a person can learn in on YouTube as well, like there are like wonderful content on YouTube as well to learn things, but how our platform is different from, will be different from YouTube, is that there is face-to-face interaction, like real-time talk, like they can talk, they can stop one at a time, that I don't understand that how did you did that and do that, like stuff like that, like there is a live interaction between a two people or a group of people, like brainstorming stuff. Yeah, raise questions at any point, and healthy competition, like a person who is also interested in things that you do, the skills you have, it will be a healthy competition, it will encourage development and to learn about new things. Yeah, Ray, over to you.
So what are our next steps with LearnUp? So firstly, we have the SDG hubs. We hope that in future iterations of the SDG hubs, we can finalize our ideas of LearnUp and hopefully think about implementing our ideas in the real world instead of just sort of brainstorming the idea. Secondly, we have collaborations. This would be good to help expand and extend our ideas by collaborating with different organizations working towards SDG 4. And this would really sort of help more students find out about LearnUp and share more skills alongside finding out about skills. And finally, we have the outreach. This is reaching out to people who might be willing to join our team, whether it be working behind the scenes or working as students for LearnUp. And this is good because obviously we want as many students as we can to learn different skills and things that they may not have done before. Ray, next slide.
Well, here you can check out our planning document. This document addresses the common questions surrounding our initiative, as it clearly outlines what our initiative is and how we anticipate it can be carried out, the purpose of our idea, as well as the key issues in modern education we seek to combat.
Yeah, so thank you all very much for listening to this. If you have any questions, I guess feel free to just raise your hand. But other questions, we did have a document, which I believe Lois just shared, and it basically outlined everything that we were planning, including some of the purposes and the issues that we're addressing. So if you're curious, you can check out our document.
Yeah, and I really encourage questions, because I think because of my like spoken English, I may not be clear at some things. So yeah, I really encourage question if you have any doubt or didn't understood anything.
Yes, thank you guys for sharing that. So in the interest of time, we're going to move on and have our panelists be the one to ask questions and give you guys some feedback on all of this. So Mr. Johnson, Mr. Abhijit, or Mr. Hugo, go for it. Yeah, I think Mr. Abhijit has his hand up, so yeah, go ahead.
Hey, hi guys. Wonderful presentation. Quick thoughts on the presentation itself. I think it felt a little dragged. You could have utilized it in a very utilized the time judiciously and made your point in a very concise manner. That's about it, because sometimes you went a little bit too deep into basic stuff, and I think explaining everything that you had put up on slides. From a audience perspective, we can obviously read what's out there, so you can focus on sharing your ideas rather than just detailing upon what's in the presentation itself, because use the presentation as a tool to support what you're speaking rather than just like using that as a pointer or a notes thing. Beyond that, really love what you're trying to accomplish. There is actually a startup, I guess it's called Brainly or something similar, which is based out of Europe, and it exactly does what you're trying to do. So it has like a forum of sorts wherein people can ask questions and students answer that. And I think it has grown up to be close to $1 billion company now. So obviously there is a need for something like this, and would definitely advise on doing some sorts of pilot with your friends, and testing how it works out, and see if you can take this further. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Yep, thank you very much, Mr. Abhijit.
Hi guys. First of all, I really, really enjoyed your presentation. Right, your story of the pigeon training, I think, is absolutely brilliant in terms of explaining what the challenges are with the current way that schools are actually trying to teach. So I think your research is absolutely spot on. And certainly a lot of the people that I speak to through 16 by 16 will be really interested to hear directly from you guys about that. I think one of the things I saw you do was you went to feasibility very early and you pulled yourselves back, and you actually limited yourselves very early on by saying we have to take small steps. So if you think about Amazon, one of the biggest companies in the world now, they actually start at the end point and work backwards, right? So their process is that they write a press release to say what they want to do, even if it's not possible right now. And then they actually work out a plan to get there. And I think that the actual Learn Up idea is really strong, but actually from the research that you had, I think you can go further, right? Learn Up's great, but actually I think you're limiting yourselves in terms of what you could achieve by only going that far. You highlighted some absolutely critical points that are really important to the world. And then you said, but we can't really do that much. So think about actually, when you consider that feasibility, what would you have presented in terms of an idea if you hadn't limited yourselves? Because you guys can do a lot more. You don't have to stay within the current system, right? We started 16 by 16 and we specifically stay away from the education system so that we can do what needs doing rather than try and fit in. And I think that in terms of the Learn Up idea that you have, I think the idea of doing a pilot that's just been said is absolutely spot on. One of the questions that I have is that how do you get it to the students who need it most? That's the kind of question I'd kind of challenge you with. But overall, I love the presentation. I love the stories. And I think that if you actually really challenge yourselves, you can go to the moon.
Thank you. Okay, coming to your question. There are many Discord servers on Discord. Like there are like people who are interested in art and stuff. Like YouTube content creators have created their channels and as well. So currently we are thinking of creating a Discord server where we will have categories of channels with different categories where people can join. And like currently we have like, we will market, like not market, like promote that server and gather students or anyone from there. Yeah.
Amazing. Sounds good, right?
Yeah, just to round off what Abhijit and Hugo said, I think it was a great presentation. You've obviously put a lot of thought and effort into thinking about SDG 4 and what you could do to understand the problems and exploring some of the solutions. I think I reflect kind of what Hugo said in terms of going bigger, starting bigger, and then pulling yourself back. So one of the approaches I take regularly is what can you achieve in 3 months, 90 days? But on the basis that anything is possible. So think back, think big, try and visualize that as far in the future as you can. And then start with asking yourself the question, right, where can we get to in 90 days? And then after that 90 days, you then work out what to do in the next 90 days. But like Amazon and all the lessons that these new companies have taught us is actually start with the destination in mind and work backwards. Point two, I'd love to see some pictures in here. I don't know whether any of you have design skills, but just a few concept pictures just to bring to life the story that you're telling always helps in presentations like this. As does, I loved your 2 quotes that you came out with, cure for boredom, curiosity, absolutely love that. What would be good is just a sense of some of the research around the audience and the types of categories. Again, just to help to bring to life the story that you're trying to tell. And I think on one of your last slides, my final point is one of the next steps is to outreach, line up with other organizations looking at SDG 4 or outreach to organizations that are interested. I'd say why make yourself dependent on those people? Just go do it. Just get started. And then those guys come to you. I think that's it.
Awesome. Thank you to all our panelists for very qualitative info. And I think Dr. Tahir also just dropped some feedback in the chat as well. And everyone's welcome to read that and internalize it. So this was a great presentation. Congratulations to HubForce team. And hopefully they can move forward with the feedback they've had and create something really amazing in the next few months. So now I'd like to welcome Hub 5 based on gender equality, which is led by Catherine. Catherine, you can go ahead and share your guys' presentation and y'all have the floor. Go for it.
All right, thank you, Matt. I'll just share my screen. All right, hello everyone. My name is Catherine Holkamp and I am the leader of the SDG 5 Hub. Today I am joined by 2 Hub members, Nika and Lauren, who are going to help out with this presentation and explaining what we've been doing over the past 6 months. So similarly to the SDG 4 Hub, we will be giving some background information on SDG 5, then what projects our Hub completed over this past iteration, and then lastly, what we hope to achieve in future iterations of the SDG Hubs. So first, we will dive into a quick recap of what SDG 5 is and how we specifically in our Hub wanted to promote it.
All right, so there are 6 targets under SDG 5, which is gender equality, which were established by the United Nations. The first is simply to end all forms of discrimination against women, which we use as the foundation for our work. Target 5.2 addresses forms of violence against women that directly violate their human rights. The third revolves around harmful practices towards women, which includes child marriage and female genital mutilation, things like that. Target 5.4 references unpaid care and domestic work through the provision of public services, infrastructure, and social protection policies. And the next target discusses broadening women's roles in power, whether that be in politics or economically. And lastly, 5.6 works to ensure that women have access to sexual and reproductive health and reproductive rights.
So through our research on SDG 5, we realized that the divide between men and women goes deeper than we ever realized, and that SDG 5 works toward more than just considering men and women as equal. As you can all see from the targets, SDG 5 covers a wide variety of issues facing women. At the root of all these things is finding and promoting respect and understanding between all genders. In trying to brainstorm a project for SDG 5, we had to consider the many layers of gender equality that could be addressed. To achieve gender equality, SDG 5 compels us to exceed the idea of genders as simply equal, instead advocating for finding respect between men and women. In order to do so, we must first understand that women, for a very long time, have been the unrecognized backbone of society through providing childcare, completing household chores, and other domestic responsibilities. And now we must allow women to enter into both the governmental and private sectors, increasing diversity and the flow of ideas. Finally, SDG 5 challenges us all to know that we cannot achieve gender equality without fighting for the health and well-being of women everywhere.
So as we continued to brainstorm possible ideas for our SDG Hub, we thought it would be best to gear our research towards specific targets. And that way our ideas would not only be more precise, but they would also leave a bigger impact. So the first target, 5.1, ending all forms of discrimination against all women everywhere, served as the foundation for our work and the starting point for everything that we wanted to accomplish in our hub. And afterwards, we decided to focus on 3 other targets, which covered harmful practices against women, women's roles as leaders, and women's sexual and reproductive health and reproductive rights. So our first potential ideas for our project were to host a workshop or panel discussion, but later on that idea kind of evolved into an open forum discussion that covered gender-based violence, period poverty, girls' lack of education, and women in politics. And we all agreed that the discussion would not only inspire others to think critically of our international community, but also provide ways that we could all ultimately help change the world.
So sorry, I can do this one. Our date was February 27th, and we had MUN Impact community members join us from all across the world. And the goal was to foster productive and constructive conversations between all of the participants. We wanted to talk about these issues that we really care about and gain, well, spread awareness about them, but also understand other people's ideas of them and what solutions they could bring to the table. I think our main goal was to really inspire action and to think of ways that we could actually implement real change.
So we first discussed gender-based violence, and there are several branches under the broad topic, but we decided to discuss domestic violence, child marriage, and honor killing, which appear on a global scale in both developed and developing countries. And domestic violence is the topic we discussed first, and that is the abuse between 2 people in a relationship. And 1 in 3 women worldwide experience some form of domestic violence, which directly goes against their fundamental human rights. And we also talked about child marriage and how every 3 seconds a young girl is married off to a man who is at least twice her age. And this is an issue that exists across borders. Afterwards, we talked about honor killing, which is the murder of a girl by her male relatives. And victims are generally killed because they're either too westernized, they converse with men and are unmarried, or they fell susceptible to rape and sexual assault. And in most cases, the girls are the ones being killed rather than the perpetrators of their crime. So that's just something interesting about honor killing as well.
So the next topic that we discussed is period poverty. Period poverty is the circumstance of not being able to afford necessary menstrual products, and it affects women across the world because all women, except for those with specific medical conditions, will get their period at some point in time in their life. Period poverty is caused by 2 things, high prices of menstrual products and the stigma that surrounds menstruation. High prices, which are often combined with value-added taxes, which are taxes added on to products deemed luxury items instead of medical necessities, which is what menstrual products should be identified as. These taxes can make it impossible for low-income women to be able to afford and prioritize taking care of their periods. Period poverty is also caused by the stigma that surrounds menstruation. Cultural stigmas often mean that women do not know about menstruation before their first period starts, leading them to not know how to take care of it at all. This lack of knowledge, as well as the high prices, can lead women to deal with their periods in unsafe ways, leading to diseases or, in very bad scenarios, even death. Additionally, cultural stigmas can often make women feel uncomfortable going to school or work while on their periods, meaning that they may drop out or quit their jobs since they must miss at least 1 week every month. And so this is truly a broad issue that affects many women across the world in many aspects of what's holding women back in society currently.
So our third topic was lack of education and professional opportunities for women. And this kind of tied into our fourth one as well, which I'll be talking more about. But here are some statistics about lack of education. This also ties into the work that SDG 4 is dealing with. But around the world, countries who are affected or that are affected by conflict are less likely to have girls attend school. And this is obviously a real big issue. And I think all of these targets kind of intersect. So you see that gender-based violence, child marriage, period poverty, all of these things affect girls' access to education and their ability to stay in school and receive a sufficient education. Okay, our next topic and our last topic was women in politics around the world, which we agreed was a very timely issue right now. A lot of our conversation revolved around female leadership during COVID-19. So we kind of discussed the misconceptions surrounding women's capability in politics and then debunked these misconceptions. So here's some evidence as to or proving that women are as capable of men in leadership positions and that they prove to be very strong leaders in times of national crises. So a Harvard Business Review article actually came out and said that women, female leaders of countries actually responded to COVID-19 more successfully than male leaders of other countries. And because of this, their rates of fatality were a lot lower and they had a lot more success in actually containing the virus. So to summarize, all these misconceptions saying that women are too emotional to be in governing positions, that they can't balance these positions with a home life and taking care of children, that they are not good at decision making or negotiating or not assertive enough. They're entirely false. And because of this, we need to create more opportunities for women to engage in governing roles because they prove to be invaluable leaders and really strong assets to their communities.
So as we continue to further our global impact and work towards gender equality, we must ensure that the conversation does not end here. And while our open discussion forum was amazing, we want to establish this as a foundation for other conversations to start. And dedicating a time to reflect on this process allows us to identify what worked in our hub and what we should put more of our attention towards.
So really quickly, we wanted to touch on a few problems that we faced while working to promote gender equality across the world. So the fight for gender equality is not at the same place all over the world. Different countries have different levels of inclusion of women, different levels of recognition. And so therefore, when we tried to come up with a concrete action plan, such as a drive to collect clothes or supplies for a women's shelter, we could not find common ground around the world for what to do. Some places around the world still do not have systems in place to protect women or provide them with adequate resources to achieve gender equality. Additionally, continued violence and discrimination are either largely tolerated or expected in some places and cultures. Because of this, it is hard for students to jumpstart the conversation and try and create these systems when they are not already in place. For these reasons, our hub had a difficult time coming up and creating a concrete action plan. However, as we continue to have conversations about gender equality and raise awareness, we hope that we will be able to begin these drives and campaigns to help women in our communities. So we see our way forward as continuing these important conversations and teaching people more about gender equality so that those conversations can take place naturally in different communities.
Yeah, so like Catherine just said, our plans for the future are to continue having cross-cultural conversations within the MUN Impact community and begin talking about gender equality and the ways to work towards it. Our open forum discussion served as a foundation to initiate these necessary conversations in our day-to-day lives, which is especially important now when a lot of the problems surrounding women are due to a large stigma surrounding these issues. And so following that same course, we would also challenge every member of the hub to have at least one conversation about gender equality with their family or friends. And everyone has a different take on gender equality, and hearing about some personal anecdotes can only enrich your knowledge of the issue and help you become more passionate and curious about it as well. And so we would like to broaden our discussion beyond the MUN Impact community as well and bring in students from around the world. And our ultimate goals for this project are to form concrete solutions to gender inequality that can be enacted in society and partner with organizations that support this SDG, but that can only happen after these conversations are had. And those conversations can also lead to brainstorming possible solutions. So that's kind of why we went with our open forum discussion.
All right, thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed our presentation, and if there are any questions, please feel free to ask, but I will turn it back over to Matt.
Thanks, guys. Great presentation. So at this time, we'd like to invite our panelists to maybe jump in and give some feedback and ask some questions. Go for it, Mr. Hugo.
First of all, again, fantastic presentation and clearly really strong discussion that you had. Quick question, how many men are involved in your hub?
That is the issue. We currently don't have any men in our hub. And so obviously conversations just between women about gender equality don't do as much as including men. So we would like to bring
that is the problem, right? Okay, so I was just interested because I kind of did notice that there were kind of no men presenting, so I had a hunch that might have been the case. So a few things that I noticed, and I can completely see that you guys have kind of got a real challenge in terms of globally. There are so many, so many different issues that you just went through, and a lot of them, as you've highlighted, are very deeply culturally ingrained. I kind of want to give the opposite advice to what I gave the last team, which is you need to be really specific, because otherwise there's no progress to be made. We can kind of have conversations about the state of the situation, but you actually need to choose an idea that solves either one of those problems or ideas to support ideas that will solve lots of those problems, right? You could kind of create a cryptocurrency to fund any project that solves any of these ideas if you kind of wanted to go down that route. Or you could, I know there was an entrepreneur in India who started making a machine to make very low cost sanitary products so that he could actually start to support his community, right? So kind of like one is really specific on one issue of period poverty. The other is about actually providing infrastructure for others to do something specific. But the danger with an issue this wide and this deep is that unless you break it down, it's overwhelming. And I think that I'd encourage you to try and do something specific that you can get done, to feel that energy of getting something done, right? And kind of going to Paul's comment from last time of what can you do in the next 90 days? And then you can kind of build on that and do something else and get other people involved. But, you know, it is obviously a huge issue. Getting men involved in the hub as well, I think, is another issue that probably we need to have a think about how to actually embrace that. I know it's a tricky one.
Thanks, Hugo. You don't shy away from the tough stuff, do you? I really loved the presentation and the story you had to tell. I think, like Hugo mentioned, it in this case, it is about being specific, and it's like racism as well. If you don't focus in on educating the people that are perpetuating the problems, then things will never change. You need to break down that systematic discrimination and all of the stigmas around it. Thankfully, I grew up with sisters, and I'm a dad to 2 teenage girls now, so I'm surrounded by girls. So I'm in a position where I can recognize inequality when I see it, and I have the ability to challenge and point things out. And one thing I will point out, maybe Lisa and the guys can take this away, is that you've got 3 judges on this panel, all males. Maybe next time we should give you a target to at least have one female on this judging panel, because I know lots of amazing female leaders, and it's still totally unequal, but the tides are changing in certain parts of the world. So maybe think about the ideas that can tap into the positive trends in driving equality, and coming up with ideas on how to build upon that momentum and speed things up, because something as challenging as these things is almost, it can take generations to change, and to become and feel normal. It's not something that can be solved in 90 days. So coming back to Hugo's point, it's be specific. Anything is possible, but not everything is possible. So really start being clear on what you think is achievable in the next 90 days, the next 90 days after that. But good luck. I'm really impressed, and you got all my respect, because this is one of the toughest challenges in the world out there today. Yeah.
Amazing. So thank you, Hugo and Paul, for putting in those words. I echo the sentiment, and I think for the sake of the presentation, I would say that let me identify as a female here, so that we could have some diversity in the panel itself. But I'm blown away by the presentation. Beautifully designed, beautifully explained. Like, huge congratulations on that part. I loved, like, I was immersed in the entire presentation while you guys were speaking. And definitely I would slightly differ from my co-panelists here and say that I think it is rather than having something to rather than focusing on one of these subjects and maybe looking at what you want to achieve in the next 3 months or so, what you've presented is itself very valuable. I think just simply having conversations about gender equality in different settings would really help. So maybe could you, having similar conversations in schools, colleges, and with groups of people, if you could make that maybe as a service or a product, something like that, and maybe provide insights that this is what people think about, and I think it falls more in the category of behavioral change on how such conversations can cause a mindset change within communities or organizations. And if you can keep having these kind of multiple conversations with different maybe companies, schools, colleges, in any different settings, I think that itself is of huge value. Because while people are doing building solutions, I feel that not a lot of people are also talking about it. So conversation itself is a huge value add. All the best. That's it from my end. I'm done.
Thank you all so much for your advice and guidance. It has been super helpful and informative, and we will be sure to implement these things that you have told us about in our next iteration. Thank you all so much.
Yep, I'd just like to echo that sentiment. Thank you to our panelists as well as to the team from Hub 5 for their presentation and for the feedback as well. And speaking to the demographics of our panel today, that was an oversight, but it's definitely within our plans to have a greater degree of gender parity in future iterations of the hubs. So that being said, thank you to our presenters and our panelists, but we're now going to move on to our final hub for today, Hub 13 for climate action, which is led by myself, Alex, Kim, and Zoe. So I'm going to go ahead and share our presentation and get this underway. And today we'll be having our hub ambassadors, Mahi Singh, Tanisha Saxena, and unfortunately Faraz Zuberi, one of our presenters who couldn't make it today, but they'll be leading today's presentation of our hub's activities. So go ahead, Mahi.
Hello to all of our guests and welcome to Hub 13's Dolphin Pool. I'm Mahi.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Tanisha.
And today we are here to represent SDG 13, which is all about climate change, and we hope that you guys enjoy.
So what are the big questions? Why do we believe in SDG 13 climate action? What have we done to support SDG 13? And how can you make an impact as well?
So why do we believe in SDG 13? As part of the present generation, we want to play a part in solving climate change and leaving a better world behind for future generations. We want them to be able to look around themselves and see the beauty and the treasures of the planet instead of them having been stolen away from them in search for our wealth and resources. Joining Hub 13 has given all of us a great opportunity to work with ambassadors with a similar passion as us and eagerness for meaningful climate change projects.
As a continuation of why we are passionate and curious about climate change, all we have to do is simply look towards the news, the various governmental and non-governmental agencies that are offering alarming statistics about the current state of our world in terms of the environment. So right here we have a world map displaying all of the many alarming facts about climate change. And you can see this is completely a global issue. Not only that, but also affects the ocean. So just to briefly share some of the statistics, in North America in 2019, the entire continent contributed to 5,975.9 million metric tons of CO2, right after Asia. In Africa, more than 11 million people are experiencing food insecurity in 9 Southern African countries due to deepening droughts. And in just globally, sea levels have risen by around 20 centimeters since 1880 and are projected to rise by another 3 to 122 centimeters by 2100. So as you can see, these are all very alarming statistics and major motivations for why we decided to get involved with climate change. And due to the sheer scope of this issue, all the different intersections of the different issues, so you will notice as we move through some of the different projects we embarked on, that we had a little bit of everything and tried to diversify a bit. And that's sort of the theme of our hub these past few months.
So the targets that we are trying to aim for through this hub are 13.3, which is about improving education and awareness raising on climate change mitigation, as well as impact reduction and early warning. The second target that we are aiming is target 13.B, which is about promoting mechanisms to raise capacity for planning and management, including focusing on women, youth, and local and marginalized communities.
So our first project idea that we worked on was our SDG Hub 13 video, and the main aim there was to raise awareness and illuminate that all the other 16 global sustainable development goals are all integrated into SDG 13. Therefore, achieving climate action could enable us to a high extent to potentially accomplish the other sustainable development goals.
The oceans are rising, the ice caps are melting, the forests are burning, but what are we doing? Solving climate change is far beyond putting out fires and cooling the planet. It starts at the root causes, 16 other global issues that, if solved, will help us achieve a healthier planet.
These issues collectively represent the Sustainable Development Goals set by the United Nations in 2015 to be achieved by 2030. Join us as we take a tour of these 16 other goals and show you how they relate to SDG 13, climate action.
Climate change could push 100 million people into poverty through natural disasters and water shortages. Climate action will prevent this.
More than 80% of the world's food insecure people live in countries prone to natural hazards and degraded environment. As climate change gets worse, there will be an increase in droughts and floods, which would destroy crops, lives, and properties in these areas.
Clean air to breathe and organic food to eat are essentials for a good health and well-being. SDG 13 climate action will help resolve this by planting more trees and avoiding single-use plastic.
SDG 4, quality education. UNESCO reports that 264 million kids globally lack access to quality education. Climate change is a threat to education as pollution and food shortages cause malnutrition and poorer health among these kids, damaging their mental and physical development.
In the developing world, women are often responsible for finding food, water, and shelter for their families. Therefore, climate change disproportionately affects women. We need climate action in order to empower young women and girls.
2.5 billion people lack access to proper sanitation. Thus, access to clean water and sanitation is more important now than ever. Climate change causes more floods, which can spread diseases through water, especially in areas with poor sanitation.
Energy is one of the main contributors to climate change, so make sure to make a sustainable contribution. By 2030, ensure universal access to affordable, reliable, and modern energy services.
According to a study from the New Climate Economy, global climate action will create 65 million new jobs in the green economy by 2030. Therefore, progress on climate action will further sustainable economic growth.
Resistant infrastructure creates growth by increasing trade and efficiency. But upgrading our infrastructure will also make us more resilient to climate change. In Asia alone, infrastructure investment can save over $400 billion in climate-related damage.
A nation will not survive morally or economically when so few have so much and so many have so little, quoted by Bernie Sanders. When inequality persists, how will climate action be taken on a global scale? Climate action calls for economic, social, and political inclusion of all.
Sustainability in communities and cities is a major and important factor of climate action, as it promotes sustainable mobility, which therefore prevents large amounts of greenhouse gas emissions. So you can save 1 kilogram every time you avoid driving 2.5 miles and walking instead.
We are dependent on the planet for its limited resources. Wastefulness in the food we consume, the trees we chop, the fuels we burn, gradually degrades our climate. We can't just consume our way to making a sustainable and livable world.
40% of the ocean is heavily affected by pollution, depleted fisheries, and loss of coastal habitat. Climate change also leads to warmer oceans and rising sea levels, affecting life both under and above water. Life on land can be thought with the existence of a sustainable ecosystem to live in. Challenges like desertification, deforestation, and land degradation can be tackled in SDG 13 climate action.
As an opportunity to build sustainable peace, strengthen governance and justice, and ensure social and economic development. Regulating industrial activities and limiting human waste are great examples of how governments can use legislative power to save the climate.
Global, regional, and local partnerships are important for the SDGs. For example, combating climate change necessitates cooperation between different countries to finance renewable technology and achieve emissions targets.
If we fall short of the 2030 agenda, climate degradation will have impoverished 100 million people, kept 45 countries starving, led to 250,000 additional deaths a year from preventable diseases, inhibited access to education for thousands of students and children due to worsening weather conditions, displaced 8 times more women than men, caused water scarcity that displaced 700 million people, put 10% of aquatic species into extinction in a decade, and eroded public trust in science and research. But by 2030, climate action, together with the other 16 SDGs, has the power to reverse this impending disaster. All it takes is for each and one of us to perform an action for the SDGs. Be it planting a seed, sharing knowledge, pick up trash, avoiding fast fashion, eating plant-based, or walking instead of driving. So ask yourself, what will you do?
So for our second project idea, we decided to embark on a mask project related to the current COVID-19 pandemic that combined SDG 13, climate action, and SDG 3, good health and well-being. The main impetus for us embarking on this project was the alarming statistics that was being released about irresponsible use of single-use PPE. So here are some environmental effects that you guys have probably been made known of. So for example, animals could mistake masks for food and ingest them, thereby harming wildlife. Microplastics that kind of degrade off of the different PPE that is thrown away could be ingested by marine animals and then consumed by humans as seafood, thereby causing humans to ingest toxic microplastics as well. And most importantly, PPE that is irresponsibly dumped in rivers could end up in our oceans or straight up just dumped into the sea, for further worsening our environment and polluting it with trash. So over a period of several weeks, our hub decided to make our own reusable cloth masks as per standards for local charities in each of our regions, and attempt to donate these masks to those charities and have them distributed to people who can use them, with the general idea being to encourage the use of reusable PPE as opposed to single-use PPE. The project is still somewhat of a work in progress. As you can see, we had multiple sessions where we worked on masks together. Some of us had finished products, which we tested out or gave out to family and friends. But all in all, it's a project that we're hoping to expand as the next iteration of SDG Hubs rolls around.
Our next Our next project will set off in the first week of May, and it's our biggest project so far, the Global Week of Action for SDG 13 Climate Action. The project breakdown. So there will be 2 weeks of interesting and engaging discussion forums, along with accelerating workshops and activities. The main aim here is to encourage individuals to perform small deeds for SDG 13, which on a global scale can cause massive impacts. In addition, this implements SDG 4 quality education.
To add on what Tanisha said, this Global Week of Action would be held during May 28th to June 11th, and we're going to have multiple parties present in our guest speaker sessions. Professors related to ecology would present about the ecology itself, and some climate activists would join our guest speaker panel to give their action that they did to sustain the SDGs 13. And also, we are going to host 2 different open discussion sessions where the high schoolers or the middle schoolers could join in to share their thoughts about the specific topic that may relate to the different SDGs collectively along with the SDG 13. And we're going to host a action component throughout the 2 weeks. We are currently building up 100 deeds for the climate action that the participants could achieve and fill it out throughout, and we are aiming to display them to encourage others to actually participate in getting all 100 deeds throughout 2 weeks.
So that's about it. Those are the 3 main projects which our hub has embarked on over the past few months. And of course, as we've explained, some of these are still work in progresses, and we're going to continue expanding them and working on them, especially in the next iteration of the SDG hubs. For example, just as a random example, one idea that was proposed was to improve the video that was taken and showed to you guys earlier, and to use that as a entry for various environmental video contests, and to use that as a fundraising tool for SDG 13 efforts. So this has been a great group of students that within the hub, within Hub 13, that have been coming up with these amazing ideas, executing them with such passion. And we're so grateful that you guys are here for us to share that with you. And thank you for your attention. So at this time, we'd like to invite our panelists maybe to give some feedback and ask some questions. Go for it, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, I'll pick this up first. Great presentation, and it looks like you've got stuck straight in and created projects and started to test and learn in terms of setting up projects, initiating projects, and seeing what works, and learning lessons based on maybe where things can be improved in the future. So big kudos to all of you. Really good. The question I have is, so climate change is a legacy of the industrial age, right? And we've recognized that for most of this century, but we're slow at turning the tide, yeah, to a responsibility. So focusing in on education, I think, is incredibly important, and I see it in certainly the younger generations, who are much more naturally in tune with the right behaviors that will help change the tide of climate change. But there's a lot of big corporates that are making committed changes now. It's taken a while, but they're beginning to change as well. My point is this, and the question is really one about education. So to change behaviors need to take place in two places: at home and at work. So my question is in context to the pandemic. In fact, over the last year, there's been lockdowns all over the world. There's been restrictions on travel and everything else. Is there anything that you guys can do to help understand the positive impact the reduction in travel, both in terms of commuting to offices, so remote working, walking to shops instead of driving to shops, or not going to shops at all, and certainly not jumping on aeroplanes. Is there any projects that you're thinking about or ideas that will gather a positive story around things like around the impact that remote working has had as a contribution to climate change? Because it's difficult to get hold of that positive information, and I kind of feel if more people were armed with the evidence of why it's better to work 4 days at home and 1 day in the office, before the company, organizations and corporates, as things unlock and we get some normality back, before the businesses and the bosses expect everyone in the office every day, is there anything that you can do to arm people up with the evidence to help them build the case for a better work-life balance? That's what I'm talking about.
For sure. Perhaps I can jump on this first with a North American perspective, and then Mahi and Tanisha can follow up as well. Of course, as you said, there's a lot of evidence, a lot of articles that's been put out showcasing that just 1 year of staying at home, working from home, and self-isolating has actually reversed some of the effects of climate change. And that's both heartening as well as kind of unfortunate that why are we only realizing this through a pandemic and not through our own voluntary action? And so when it comes to what we as a hub can do, I think a lot of that information exists out there. As you said, Mr. Johnson, it's just a way of how do we get that into the hands of people? And I think one idea that comes immediately to mind is artistic expression. Our hub has members who are incredibly talented with arts and crafts, painting and such. And I think finding ways to visualize and embody that information in those forms of artistic expression and then distributing those could be one way we approach this problem. Maybe Mahi and Tanisha, if you'd like to add to that.
Yes, I totally agree with what Matt said about having visual learning throughout, or just raising awareness on that context of voluntarily, for example, campaigns and workshops that people can participate in. But obviously the first base foundation for that would be to make sure that people are aware of the issues about climate change, which comes into the visual prospect of it.
Sure. Mahi, anything to say? Add?
Yeah, I would say I've seen just from my friends and everything that there has been a rise in small online businesses, because I live in Morocco, which is in Northern Africa, and a lot of people struggle because of lockdowns, but people were able to overcome that by starting little online businesses and everything. I think that's a great way to do it. But another thing that I've realized is a lot of my friends were more willing to do things like beach cleanups or forest cleanups, because being stuck in our home for months, it's so refreshing to get out and know that cleaning up trash is good for the earth, and then just getting out in fresh air is so good for your health. We recently did a forest cleanup, which all of us enjoyed a lot, and I feel like COVID-19 has made us realize the importance of going out in nature rather than just staying inside. And as we got out more in nature, we realized that we need to save the earth because it's in great trouble, and we are destroying it every day. And I don't know, but I personally felt a deep connection with nature during lockdown, because I felt like we are really overloading the earth. And I think a lot of other people felt that too. And people are more willing to do activities that will help the environment, like cleanups.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I personally want to see some long-term changes as a consequence of the pandemic we've been at. Just in answer to your point, Matthew, it is a shame that humans haven't woken up sooner. But as always, human species, we're an arrogant species, and we've always needed a big fat wake-up call before proper change happens. And I'm hopeful that behavior of work, commuting, you know, an hour to 2 hours a day is going to change. So that gives, you know, gives everyone kind of 5 to 10 hours a week, maybe, to do something else, get out and stay at home and get out into nature and find a better work-life balance. So I think the only takeaway I'm giving back to you is how can we amplify the positive things that the pandemic has given us, rather than amplifying the ongoing issues of climate change, because I think that's readily acknowledged and understood, but it's all of the positive stories and effects that we're having on reducing climate change that we don't hear enough about. It comes down to education again. I'll shut up now. Sorry, Hugo, over to you.
So first of all, I think it's absolutely fantastic what you've done, particularly the video. That was very powerful. I've actually sent an email to Matthew because I think even in the form, actually probably more in the form that it is now, I think it will be very powerful on social media. I know you guys probably think, oh, we've got to improve it, but I think that's actually incorrect. However, I think you guys can go way further. What you've demonstrated is like really, really powerful. But what I'd challenge you to do is ask yourselves, who are the people at our schools and our communities who aren't engaged in this? Because the one danger with this is that there's kind of like a preaching to the choir or the kind of converted people who already see it. And so let's talk about fast fashion, right? So fashion is probably one of the biggest challenges in the whole kind of piece, right? That actually changing behaviors now in teenage years, when you're actually starting to buy and decide what fashion to go for, could have a huge impact. And I think that the opportunity that you guys have to actually try not just to talk about the education piece, because the tide is turning very, very kind of fast on this. You know, Paul's mentioned kind of big corporate organizations have started to kind of pick up the lead. But actually, I think what you guys can do is actually take action, like real action. And I'm challenging that because I think what we've done is excellent, right? So it's kind of go further, go bigger. You have the ability to do that. I think that there has been talk about this right back in the kind of 70s and the 60s. People have been kind of turning the wheel on talking about climate action. But there are solutions that you guys could create to a lot of this stuff. You know, there are huge numbers of youths that you could mobilize around this stuff to actually be able to really drive it. And I'd encourage you to challenge yourselves really, really hard. How do you feel about that?
I guess personally, it's a great message. Thank you for the encouragement. And I personally appreciate both what Mr. Johnson and Mr. Hugo said in terms of exploring, you know, how to get information out to people, how to emphasize the fact that the pandemic has been somewhat good for the environment, what lessons we can learn from that, as well as fast fashion for sure. Yeah, Mahi, Tanisha?
If we're like just talking about like fast fashion, I've actually taken this pandemic as I've taken like the lockdown time to educate myself more on fast fashion, and I've seen that a lot of like celebrities and even politicians are now starting to like emphasize on wearing like either like rental clothes, because like you don't need to always buy new clothes just for one day or one night out. You can just rent clothes for cheaper and not contribute to like the fast fashion industry. And in the Global Week of Action also, I'm thinking of having a Socratic seminar about like how corporates are affecting climate change and what we can do to reduce the devastating impact of like big corporates on environment, because they are a huge, they play a huge role in like contributing to climate change. Even though they are there for our needs and our demands, they're still very like harmful to the environment. So I'm really, I'm like always curious to learn more about it, and I want to share it with other people, which is why I've taken the initiative to talk about it in the Global Week of Action.
Amazing, guys.
Yes, a few thoughts here. Again, amazing presentation. As you said, that video was wonderful. Really loved it. One question is, while that video is now in place, what are your plans in terms of ensuring that that there's a good outreach for that message that you've created? That's a question. I will follow up with another one.
Yes, for sure. I think this is something we've discussed.
Matthew, anyone from the team would like to share some thoughts?
Yeah, sorry, am I audible? Okay, oh, okay, yeah, sorry, I guess I started replying a couple seconds ago, but maybe I got cut off. But yeah, this is something we've discussed amongst ourselves, especially with the GW, the Global Week of Action coming up. Video would be a great way to sort of complement and be like our sort of flagship message. Once we make some edits, make the video a little nicer, that's definitely one way we can utilize it as an outreach tool. Also, as we previously mentioned, entering it into video competitions for environment. That was the original plan, but we didn't find one in time to enter this video. But to submit that and somehow maybe use any potential funds earned from that as a way to benefit SDG 13 as well. So there are a couple ideas that are sort of in the air, but we're still exploring them.
Okay. Thank you for that. I think it would definitely help. Maybe you could tap into some of the existing campaigns that other organizations would have been running. Something like Global Shapers, World Economic Forum, they have a lot of these initiatives. And I think this video could be of great value to them. My second question primarily arises from something that I read a couple of days back. So I think one of the key things with climate change is the top like 1,000 companies actually are responsible for about 70–80% of the emissions globally. And I think media in certain ways projects it as a lot of puts it on people who rarely have who have a very limited impact on it, while it is essential that each one of us takes relevant steps towards it. But I think what could be further advanced into your series of awareness is could there be a more could there be more awareness around people that could go as a policy activism towards companies to change their ways on the way they handle environmental concerns. I was actually just as you're presenting, I went through this one article by BlackRock, which is one of the largest investment companies out there, and their chief executive Larry Fink has issued an ultimatum to these 1,000 companies about putting up a net zero strategy in their business plans, and otherwise like a the fund manager like a BlackRock would dump them. So it's quite a threat of sorts out there, but I think these kind of strong motives need to be supported further. And I think if there's more voicing around such initiatives or highlighting companies or CEOs who've been doing it, I think that could definitely serve the purpose in certain ways. That's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, thank you. And yeah, thank you for that information. I think thinking about how we can sort of approach corporate entities when it comes to advancing our hub's cause is that these companies are on their end trying to look for ways to engage youth and maybe trying to offer that element from our hub and saying, hey, let us advance our message of sustainability, net zero emissions, and in return for that sort of, I guess, building that relationship between youth and corporate entities is one way we can approach this. But all in all, I'd like to thank all the panelists for your feedback. As you guys probably know, some of these projects are work in progress, but having your feedback, having your questions has helped us, or even just within the span of the past 5 minutes, kind of develop our ideas and even give us new ideas. So we'll definitely circle back amongst ourselves and try and develop some of those ideas into something even better next iteration. At this time, I think we'll entertain a quick question from one of our participants, Kizran, and then after that, we'll move on and end out the program.
Yes, it's not, I don't believe it's a question, but I don't know if this is my place to say this, but this was a very informative SDG hub, and it's a really great initiative, because coming from a country, I'm from Pakistan, by the way, so coming from a country that's like a major contributor to the climate change to the world, I believe that the governments, like as you have said before, the governments have taken action, and so has ours. Recently they took an action, I guess it was in the end of last year, that they substituted all the plastic bags in the country with paper and cloth bags. But then there's this thing that a government can do so much, right? And one that, like, it has implemented it, it has stopped the production of plastic bags. However, the rural areas, the areas like which are underdeveloped inside the country, because we are a developing country, so the government has taken the initiative and it has been implemented. However, a certain number of people, people from the rural areas, do not abide by that because they're not educated enough to follow up on those law implementations. So I believe that this initiative that they have provided is actually a very probably a very practical one, because I recently started my own, like a kind of like an organization. I just recently started with it. It's for climate change in my specific country, although it tackles climate change globally, but it's specifically to educate the people of my country, Pakistan, so that they start taking an action, because the two major, like Pakistan is one of the major contributing country to climate change in the world, and number two, it is one of the sole countries that is has a major contribution to the pollution and the pollution of cigarette butts. So that organization tackles that, and so we believe that collaborating with MUN Impact in this initiative will actually reach out to the developing and the underdeveloped countries, and it will help spread the climate change actions in those countries as well.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, and that right there is the whole reason why SDG hubs exist. And personally, as sort of been the organizing figure since November, it's very heartening to see that we're like a magnet that draws attention from all other students who are doing SDG action who aren't necessarily affiliated with us yet. So thank you for sharing, Hizran, and definitely, maybe come join us next iteration. That'd be great. So we're gonna move on with our program and sort of end things out here. I know we've been here for quite some time, but don't worry, we're about to end. So allow me to just share my screen once more. So there we go. So thank you for all the hubs, the hub leaders, our panelists, our audience members. Thank you to everybody for listening to these presentations. giving your feedback, and hopefully this sort of gave you some inspiration or sort of shows you why you should join us next iteration. And now we'd like to move on to Ambassador Awards. So this really has been a pilot program in that it's completely, up from the ground, built from the ground up, very, very new, very much experimental. And all of us on behalf of our adult executive board leadership, our hub leaders, we are just absolutely blown away by all our hub members, the support we've received. And as the leadership team, we'd like to give some of that back and recognize our SDG Hub ambassadors who have contributed the most to the hubs. So we'd like to offer them these different certificates of distinction, and we'll go hub by hub and introduce who are our different recipients. So for Hub 4, for certificates of distinction, we have Adriana Guaman, Prince Santosh Kumar, and Rai Muhammad Ibrahim. Congratulations, you guys. You're all recipients of this award. Thank you for your participation in brainstorming the Learn Up initiative, and all of us hope to see that blossom in the next iteration of the hubs. And for Hub 5, regarding gender equality, we'd like to congratulate Lauren Fuchs and Nika Tarkian for their work in the hub. Also, amazing job running forum discussions related to these very tough issues. And hopefully you guys can expand that service and maybe start reaching out to people who are less receptive to such messages in the future as well. And lastly, for our hub, we'd like to congratulate Faris Zuberi, Mahi Singh, and Tanisha Saxena for their amazing contribution since November. It's been an amazing ride with all of you. And thank you so much for working on the mask project, the video project, and the work that we'll continue to do together as we prepare for the Global Week of Action next month. So with all of that said, thank you so much for being here today, our panelists, our audience members, our hub leaders and hub ambassadors. This has been an amazing journey and really shows what we are capable of as an organization when it comes to starting youth SDG action. This has really been, from going to like the debates in Model UN to this sort of action, this sort of meaningful impact is really, it really shows that educating youth about global issues is where all of this starts, and it culminates in meaningful action like what we've witnessed today. So from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of all of our leadership team members, thank you so much. At this time, I'd like to invite some of our, maybe our other adult contributors who are in the room today, but not necessarily on the panel. Mr. Cody, Mr. Newman, if y'all are still around, Dr. Tahir, maybe you guys wanna jump on and give us a nice closing message.
Okay, so I think I have typed, quite detailed feedback around. So all the presentations were really good. I really enjoyed all of them. You brought a different set of ideas and experiences, and I could see that it was not like one of the guys actually said that it was not actually to pass an exam, but really understand the problem or the real use case or the issue. So that was really good, and that doesn't happen very frequently, at least in the education system, etc. But yeah, it was really nice. One of the things that I probably forgot to type in my long messages is that it's time how you connect to the newer generation, right? Or your generation and the future generation is that, and I always keep harping about this, which say, how do you make these SDG goals or doing responsible, kind of behaving responsibly, how do we make that cool? And I think one of the things that you covered, you by educating, by artwork and all that stuff is really great. One element which is the government element that needs to come in, I think somebody was asking that question, wherein the governments will have to step in and start giving some kind of a tax breaks, etc., because that will drive that corporate behavior. That's my view, because then the journey would be slightly faster, or else they will keep finding ways to avoid these things. But no, let's make sustainability a cool thing. Well done, guys.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, in the interest of time, if no one else wishes to go ahead and speak, just, once again, thank you all for coming. I'd just like to take a quick picture. If everyone could turn on their webcams if you're able to, we'll get a nice picture of this event that shows all of our amazing participation. So hold on, let me get the screenshot ready. 3, 2, 1, cheese. Thank you, everybody. This has been an amazing journey. All right, then. So I guess we'll end things off today. Thank you, everybody, for coming. If you wish to rewatch this, it'll be on our Mun Impact YouTube channel shortly. And we also highly encourage you guys to share it with your friends, family, schoolmates, your coworkers. Either way, we'd appreciate it. And see you all in Hubs 2.0. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.